Okay, so as we sit here and record this, I'm looking at the Western Conference standings, which will change later tonight because some of these teams are in action, and it will definitely change by the time you hear this. But right now, Golden State is first at 10-3, followed by OKC, the Lakers, and the Rockets. Not sure that's what I expected the top four in the West to look like a month into the season, and it might not look exactly like that, but pretty interesting to say the least. I'm going to come out and say it right now. I'm not sold on three of those four teams. I'm not sold on the Warriors. I'm not sold on the Lakers. I'm not sold on the Rockets, but I do think the Rockets are ahead of schedule and they should be discussed more. Hate that the fact that I'm discussing them more to say that I'm not sold on them, but I think it's a little bit harder to do the tiers in the Western Conference than it is in the East because there's a certain level of weirdness, I think, involved with these teams. I think that a lot of them can be good regular season teams, but I'm not sure of those teams outside of the Thunder who's really built for postseason success or who I trust to win a couple postseason series.
Yeah, I don't hate that take at all. The West is, on any given night, you could have a different opinion on, who's a contender and who's not. Like the two teams that come to mind immediately, like the Denver Nuggets are a team that they're on a 5-game win streak with Nikola Jokic in the lineup. And then he supposedly is out with, due to the birth of his, I think, second child.
Second child,
yeah. And then they go on a 3-game losing streak. They bounce back with a win last night, thanks to Mr. Triple-Double Russell Westbrook picking up his 200th career triple-double. First place. First player in NBA history. Only 5 other players in NBA history even have 100. But that's a sidebar on its own. And then you look at a team like the Phoenix Suns, where with Kevin Durant in the lineup, they're in first place, and then he gets hurt, and then they lose 5 of their next 6, and now they're back in 6th place. So when, again, safe take, when stars are healthy and in the lineup, Denver is a contender. Phoenix is a contender. When Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic are in the lineup, those teams look a lot more fraudulent. So it's but that's the balance of power in the West, though. There are so many good teams in the West. Like you said, 11 teams over 500 compared to just 4 in the East, that having a star player miss a handful of games like that can swing the standings like crazy because, you lose 4 games in a row, you're dropping out of the picture. So, I think right now, to answer your question about those top 4 teams, Thunder, obviously a contender, and Isaiah Hartenstein might be coming back. Finally get my man J-Dub, Jalen Williams off stilts, guarding centers every single night. But, when you look at the Rockets, I'm still not sold. I like the depth they have. Like you said, the youth movement is trending in the right direction. Ime Udoka doing a great job putting those pieces in place and finding different lineup combinations that are working. And guys are in and out of the lineup, in and out of the rotation. But it feels like whenever it's their turn to step up and step into the lineup, they are stepping up. The Lakers, I actually am sold. I started this from the very top. JJ Redick is one of the smartest minds in basketball right now, in my opinion. I think the way that he has found different, again, lineup combinations, and he took D'Angelo Russell out of the starting lineup and put the ball in LeBron James' hands more often. Now he's leading the league in assists. They're running offense through Anthony Davis, who for the longest time was leading the league in scoring until Giannis just passed him this last week. But he's been as dominant as we've ever seen him. We see Dalton Knecht go off for 37 points last night. That's just feeding the hot hand. But also, he's putting that shooter, that young, talented shooter, in a position to be successful, running different actions, different sets for him and everything like that. That, to me, is a team that looks more legitimate than they did last year. Now, hey, if they run into the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs, we all know how that one ends by now. But any other team, I don't see why they couldn't beat them. And even with JJ at the helm, maybe they can find a scheme that works against Nikola Jokic. The Golden State Warriors, they're getting it done on the defensive side of the ball, so that makes me feel more confident in them. They have one of the best defenses in the NBA. I didn't look at their defensive rating going into the pod, but they've been top 5 all year in that category. Stephen Curry still bringing it night in and night out. Buddy Hield has been incredible off the bench for them. He's had a revitalizing season after he couldn't even get into the rotation in the playoffs for the 76ers last year. So, out of I would say 4 teams in the top, I would call 3 of them legitimate contenders, with the Houston Rockets kind of varying back and forth. But, I could see why you would feel as strongly as you did, only saying that one of them in your eyes is a legitimate contender right now.
Yeah, it feels weird to say only one of them is, but I think it's just because I have so many questions about them. And I think about the Warriors, and they just feel to me like this team that's built to go out and win 50, 55 games. And then when it kind of slows down in the playoffs, and Steph has been doing a great job this year, rebounding and distributing the ball. You mentioned Buddy Hield, Draymond, and a lot of these guys stepping up, Trace Jackson Davis stepping up. That's interesting, but I'm curious to see what that looks like in a playoff series because, and we've said this about them before, Steph will be 37 when the playoffs roll around. I don't know if that means anything or doesn't mean anything, what have you. But I think that with all of these teams, specifically LA, Golden State, there's definitely big potential for them to make a move. The Lakers are in the market for grabbing the big. The Warriors maybe have the chips to get another player to make it make more sense when the postseason rolls around. So I don't want to. I guess I don't want to come back and we come back here 4 months from now, 6 months from now, like, oh, you said they weren't contenders. Well, yeah, I think that they have they're a little bit away, and maybe they could show me some more over the next month of the season, and I believe that. But the biggest thing that I took away, you mentioned Denver and Phoenix already, when I was looking at these teams in the Western Conference, is you got to talk about Minnesota, you got to talk about Memphis, you got to talk about Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox scoring 60 points last weekend, and the Mavs went to the finals last season. But the biggest thing that I took away from that, and I didn't say the Clippers' name for a reason, even though I just said it, there's just a bunch of teams in the West that are going to beat the hell out of each other. Like the Clippers are just I use the word frisky, I use the word feisty to describe them already. Like their defense, shout out to Jeff Van Gundy, what he's doing with their defense. It's never an easy night. They've beaten the Warriors twice already this season. I think that's probably why I'm not sold on them. I think if a team can just lock in for a 7-game series and do that, then that's kind of what the book is going to be on Golden State, barring another change. So that's that again. More than ever, I think the Western Conference, and that's any playoffs, but more than ever, I think how the bracket shapes out, that 3-6 matchup, that 1-8 matchup, like this could be a year where, there's not a big difference between the number 1 seed and the 8 seed. And you're seeing a lot of upsets in the first round just because the Western Conference is that good. There's that much depth. And the one last thing I'll say about the Rockets, when we're talking about that team and you think about, the vets, the vet being Freddie, but Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Dylan Brooks being another vet on that team. I can see them making like a 2018 C's run, like a fun team. They're just out there hooping, got a good coach, and they're catching teams off guard because they're too young to even know that they're in a big moment. So that would be interesting to see from the Rockets. But again, a lot of that is matchup dependent, and that's kind of the way the Western Conference is shaping out.
Yeah, I don't hate that take at all. Like a team of guys who are all playing for each other. It doesn't matter who the leading scorer is on any given night. Some nights it's Jalen. Some nights it's Alperen Şengün. Some nights, it might be Fred VanVleet. So they're willing to play for each other. And like that's honestly the most dangerous version of basketball when you're just sharing the rock and it doesn't matter who's your leading scorer every night. That's part of the reason why the Cavs have been so successful. Like they haven't had the same leading scorer in a game back-to-back nights in consecutive games all season long. Like that's just like pure brand of basketball.